You're listening to OET Roleplay Practice with Kev, the English native.
Hello everyone, it's Kevin here. Welcome to the very first episode of OET Roleplay Practice with the English native. That's me. I also have another podcast called The English Native where I talk about lots of different things, but this particular podcast is something else. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Kev, an online English teacher. You can find me on italki, and I'm a specialist in preparation for OET as well as IELTS, TOEFL and everything else, but specifically for OET I've created this podcast to help healthcare professionals like you get confident for the OET speaking test. Whether you're a doctor, nurse, or a healthcare worker, OET speaking can feel stressful because you only have a few 5 minutes to build rapport, gather information, explain a medical situation, and reassure your patient. But here's the good news. With the right kind of practice, you can make this feel natural and even enjoyable. And it's exactly what this podcast is designed to do. So before I explain the format, I'll just give you a bit of background as to why and how and where we have this podcast. So, as I say, I've been on teaching doctors and nurses, and veterinarians and other professionals on italki for quite a while now. One thing that I noticed, I did actually write a research paper on this. I might put links to that below in the description about how, so I was teaching them what to say, so we were having our classes and we would do the role plays and I'd say, well, you could say that, you could say this to match the criteria, etc. I realized that there was a gap between, teaching theory and practice or praxis. So what I've been working on this last week or two, because this is a very new project for me. It's only, it's like a week, just over a week now. So I thought, right, what if I take, so how I teach in the classroom, I make audio recordings of the role plays for the doctors and the nurses. I transcribe them and do an analysis of their responses for all the criteria, pronunciation, grammar, vocab, and more importantly, the clinical communication criteria. Actually, if you go over to my Native English podcast, episode 40, I talk about this lack of responsiveness and why it costs people a good score. So that was the problem. They needed some exemplars, some examples, some models to follow. And I was writing transcripts out, which are good. And I can't put transcripts here on Spotify if this is where you're listening. If you're listening on the English Native, the transcription is below. TheEnglishNative.com if you're on Spotify. Every episode will have a transcription. So me just giving a transcription is useful up to a point. They can read those, they can see what they said, they can compare their language with the criteria, A, B, C, D, E, the clinical communication skills. But I thought, well, maybe it might be better if I actually make a recording as well so they can hear how it should sound. Yeah, doctor and nurses, patients, etc. So that's what I've been working on. I use artificial intelligence quite a lot for my transcriptions and my workflow processing. I have quite a few tools I've developed or taught to do particular tasks. And I found one that does text to speech. So I found some voices and wrote a script, and here we are. The next episodes, I've got 4 recordings I've got to sort out into episodes. I'll probably release 1 or 2 a week because they are quite time consuming to make, and I have many other projects. So I've got the audio for the role plays and a transcription. So let me explain the format. So in every episode, you'll hear a complete OET style role play, around 4 to 5 minutes long, with a doctor and patient or a nurse and patient. Okay, so you can hear it just like in a real test. You can read the script. So don't just listen once. To get the most benefit, try this 3-step routine. So first, listen all the way, first time, without pausing. Focus on the flow and how the doctor or nurse manages the consultation. Listen again while reading the transcript. You'll find it in the notes or the description. This will help you notice useful phrases, expressions for gathering information, explaining, giving advice, all matched to the criteria A, B, C, D, E, the clinical communication skills. So you can see what's a good phrase or expression and how it maps onto the criteria. This is the most important thing. So listen, read the script, notice how the particular phrase maps onto the criteria. Like I said, I won't speak about it here, but in episode 40 of my English native podcast, I talk about this responsiveness. Now, the next thing is, especially if your pronunciation needs some attention, you can shadow the doctor's lines out loud. Play the role play again. Repeat in real time, matching their tone, intonation, and pace. This kind of active practice is what builds fluency and helps you sound confident in the exam. So it's not just a script for you to read. You can actually hear in realistic voices how it plays out and how it matches to the criteria. Now, why this works? The OET speaking test, it's not just about grammar or vocabulary, but they are important. It's about sounding clear, professional, and empathetic, especially empathetic, being responsive, as I keep on saying to all my patients. Sorry, my students, not my patients. So by practicing with these role plays, you'll get used to the natural timing of a real consultation. Learn how to reassure, educate patients using simple, clear language, improve your pronunciation, rhythm, and stress so you sound natural and easy to understand, and build your confidence. So when you sit the real exam, you won't feel rushed or surprised. So what I would do, I recommend you treat each episode like a mini study session or a lesson. And of course, if you do want lessons with me, of course, you can contact me anytime on italki, link below. So get a notebook, jot down the phrases, repeat them till they feel automatic. One thing that you're going to find here, which is important, you need a repertoire of phrasing. By which I mean there's more than one way to acknowledge, explain, encourage, reassure. You don't be using the same language. An obvious one is concerns. I see your concerns. I understand your concerns. Ad infinitum. You don't want that. That doesn't work. So let's get started with today's role play. So for this first one, you'll hear a patient who recently had a mild heart attack. They're feeling tired, and they're having a consultation with their doctor because they want to know just how much exercise is safe during their recovery. So in this role play, you'll hear the doctor gathering information, incorporating the patient's perspective. What do you think about this? How does that sound? Explaining how recovery works. All these key verbs of explaining, the giving, the recommending, etc. So for now, sit back, have a listen, and notice how the consultation is structured. So let's get started.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Katya, one of the doctors here at the clinic. Could I confirm your name, please?
Yes, it's Mr. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. I see you were discharged a few days ago after your mild heart attack. Before we start, what's the main thing you'd like to discuss today?
I'm worried about what I can safely do. I really don't want to set off another attack.
I hear that. It must feel quite scary not knowing what's safe. Here's what we can do today. First, we'll talk about how you've been feeling since you left hospital. Then we'll look at safe activity, getting back to work, and steps you can take to lower the risk of another attack. Does that sound like what you were hoping for?
Yes, exactly. That's why I came.
Good. How have you been feeling since you got home?
Mostly tired and weak.
Can you tell me a bit more about when you notice the tiredness and how it affects your day?
I've just been resting. I'm scared any effort might bring on another attack.
I see. So that fear has been playing on your mind. What kind of thoughts do you have when you try to do something physical?
I keep imagining it happening again when I'm on my own. That's what frightens me.
That must feel unsettling. And just so I understand your situation, what kind of work do you do?
I work in an office. I sit at a desk most of the day.
That's helpful to know. Let's start by talking about the tiredness you've been feeling. After a heart attack, it's very common to feel low on energy for 4 to 6 weeks. Does that match what you've noticed so far?
Yes, that sounds right. I just didn't think I'd be this tired.
It often takes people longer than they expect to get their strength back, and that can be frustrating.
Yes, it has been frustrating.
That's completely understandable. The important thing is that your heart is healing, and gradually building activity will actually help it get stronger.
I'd like to know how much activity is safe.
Great question. Gentle activity is one of the best things you can do right now. I'd suggest starting with a short 5 to 10 minute walk each day and gradually increasing as you feel stronger. How does that sound to you?
I think I could do that.
Excellent. There's also a cardiac rehab program where a physiotherapist will guide you step by step. Would you be interested in joining?
Yes, that would make me feel safer.
Good. Since we've covered exercise, let's talk about getting back to work. For a desk job like yours, most people can return in about 4 to 6 weeks, once they feel physically and emotionally ready. How does that time frame sound to you?
That sounds good. I was worried it might take much longer.
I'm glad to hear that. We'll check in before you go back to make sure it feels like the right time.
Thank you.
Before we finish, I'd like to go over some steps to lower the chance of another heart attack. The main ones are eating more vegetables and whole grains, staying physically active, and taking your medication regularly. How do you feel about making those changes?
The exercise is fine, but the diet will be hard. I like fried food.
That's a common challenge. Would you find it helpful if I referred you to a dietitian who can give you practical meal ideas?
Yes, that would help.
Great. So, just to summarize, you'll start with short daily walks, join the rehab program, plan to return to work in a few weeks, and see a dietitian for support with diet changes. Does that plan make sense?
Yes, it does. I feel a lot more confident now.
That's excellent. If anything worries you before your next appointment, just give us a call.
Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome, Mr. Dean. We'll support you all the way through your recovery.
So, there you go. That's episode number 1. I hope you find it useful and informative. And I'll see you for the next one. Okay, bye for now.
You're listening to OET Roleplay Practice with Kev, the English native.